Hello, hello. Welcome for a new episode of Author Spotlight. Hey, it's your host with the most, your main man, Darren M. Palmer. So excited to be with you, where I get the honor and the privilege to be able to interview best-selling authors and go behind the scenes. I have today on is a amazing man, who is the name of John Hinkle. And I just want to thank you, Mr. Hinkle, for coming on to the Author Spotlight today. It's an honor to have you on, sir.
It is my pleasure, Darren. I'm so glad to be here.
Awesome, awesome. I'm just going to share just a little bit about you. It's 100% certain that everyone listening to this podcast is experiencing some kind of change or transition in their life or business. He's sharing with us how to navigate transitions and determines our ultimate success. Our guest, John Hinkle, an author, speaker, and personal growth coach who's empowering men and women to navigate those changes and find their second half purpose. John's experience working with Fortune 500 companies has equipped him with unique tools to help others reach their own personal and business success goals. He's here today to share 5 practical and transformational principles from his book, Shift, Moving from Where You Are to the Life You Want, to empower you to move from your current unfulfilled status to a future of success and purpose. Welcome to the show, Mr. John. We thank you so much again, sir, for coming on.
Great to be here.
Yeah, so let's get right into it. Why Shift, Mr. Hinkle? Why Shift as your first book?
Yeah, well, I wrote this book a year ago, and it was really because I was experiencing a shift in my life, and I know in talking to hundreds of other people who are sort of in my stage of life or sort of that mid-career area, that everybody is going through some sort of shift. And it's really interesting. This book has been out for about a year, but it's never more relevant than it is right now in the midst of a coronavirus and everybody trying to figure out sort of where they stand. Everybody feels that the foundation they're on is a little bit shaky, or maybe a lot shaky. And we're all quarantined in our houses and trying to figure out exactly what is our next move. And so The Shift is a book that can help you kind of figure out in a very systematic way kind of how to think about and how to take those next steps in your life or your career.
And I think that that's so spot on. The content that you create in this book, you might have knew. I didn't know that we were going to face, COVID-19, a coronavirus in 2020 or whatnot. But the information that you have, needless to say, is still very important. So with that being done and being said, I want us to go a little bit deeper far as the mindset of why did you go ahead and create this book at that particular time? Because like you could have went a different route because of your years and experience in helping Fortune 500 companies. You could have said something. You could have went in there with a consultant route. You could have went, just speaking to managers. So kind of take us around the mindset that allowed for you to say, hey, I'm going to go this route for this particular book.
Sure. Well, again, a little bit it's based on my experience. I, worked in corporate world for, 25 years. And I like to talk about it as being sort of in a corporate spin cycle, right? So when you're in the corporate world, you're kind of spinning all the time, just trying to keep things moving. And you don't really have much time to really think about the meaning of your life or your career or where it's leading to. You've got sort of a triangle of places you're going, and up a corporate ladder, and it gets narrower and narrower and more impossible and easier to get knocked off all the way up. And so I, for myself, decided at a point in time that I needed to find a way for me to be sustainable and not be dependent on other people or an organization even to define my future. And I speak to guys, men and women all over the country, and everybody feels the same way. And I kind of call us the working worried. We're working, but we're worried. We're worried that things may not be sustainable for us. We're worried that if we lost our job, or if the economy turned, or if a coronavirus, appeared, what would happen to us? Most of us are still not able to retire. We still have responsibilities. We're still maybe paying off our kids' college debts. And yet everything that we have in our life is dependent on decision by somebody else if we're in a corporate world. So for me, I decided that I kind of needed to take more control over my life, and I had to figure out how to do that and what steps I was going to take in order to make a successful transition. And when I developed these steps and I talked to other people about them, they really resonated. So I decided it was really something that more people needed to hear, and so I wrote the book to help explain that.
Mm. And for those who are tuned in, what Mr. Hinkle has shared with us, to me, is important of understanding, what do you have? Okay, he utilized something that was in his wheelhouse. He shared from a place of where he's had experience. As my grandmother would say, back in the day before her passing, that the proof is in the pudding. With these
Yeah.
years of experience, he didn't forsake that and start trying to or create content about knitting. Like he was a knitting professional. He had an expertise far as helping Fortune 500 companies, and that's what he spoke to. He knew the pain points of all of us out there who are, I call it the gerbil mentality or the rat race, so to speak, as far as, being distressed. It's never enough. You work in as many hours as you can, and you just know that any moment, any day, you can have your head on the chopping block and it's over for you. They can bring somebody in, fresh out of college, don't even have to pay them as much, give them a lower package or whatnot, and you're out the door. So he spoke to that. And so I want those who are tuned in to understand the importance of that. Your pain is your product. What is that thing that you're holding on to that could be beneficial to someone else? And I love that John has took the selfless act and been a servant leader, because he could have hoarded that information to himself. I just jumped off a call where a young lady was saying a member of her team was saying that they were having a webinar, and the young lady shared, well, I don't want to have that type of webinar because we're giving away all our secrets. And she had to go ahead and have that grasshopper moment with her and let her know it's about pouring into people. It's about helping people. It's about abundance mindset. And that's what Mr. Hinkle has done with this particular book. And, with your schedule, because I know we're talking about the matters of the heart. I know some people are saying, Darren, it sounds good, buddy, but I have a ton of stuff. And let's just say, for instance, this was pre-COVID-19. So we weren't just stuck in a house. We had schedules that was overloaded, activities and things to do. So, Mr. Hinkle, please share with us. It's one thing to say that you're going to do a book, but what were the actual steps that you take? Were it blocked off times? Was it weekend? Did you go to Cuba like Hemingway and look out a window and write? Tell us, how did you create content for this book?
Yeah. Well, yes, I took some kind of time away, not from my work, because I can't afford to do that. I'm not that rich, but I took those moments when I could, and I don't know what process many of your writers take, but for me, I have to create sort of the big picture first. And until I can see the big picture, I can't really delve down into sort of the details and organize my thoughts. So that's the starting point for me. What is sort of the inspiration? What is the pain point that I have that I wanted to share? And how do I solve that issue for myself? And once I kind of got that established, it kind of backed up and put the principles together. Now, what I need to tell you about this book is, and what your listeners about this book, is it is not a typical business book. It is written in a narrative. So there is a character in this book, and the character goes through, the typical hero story where he's got a challenge and he's got to go through he's on a quest and he's got to go through certain challenges in order to reach his goal and reach his purpose in life. And so the book is written in that kind of fashion. And so the character in this book is, sort of a mid-manager. He's the guy who everybody thought was going to be the most successful out of the whole group of guys he hung with, but he ended up being the one who was the least successful, and that's really bothering him. And on top of that, the company he works for is at risk of being taken over, and everybody's job is being lost, and it kind of is up to him not only to save his own job, but to save the job of the team that works under him. And so that's kind of what happens in this book. And through the book, he meets a guy who kind of helps him put things into perspectives, teaches him 5 principles that can help him move from where he is currently in that sort of stance of uncertainty to where a life where he's got more control over and can make decisions and can move forward successfully. So it's very much of a reading kind of book, not just a, principle one, principle two, principle three kind of book.
Amazing. Kind of that theme, like the richest man in Babylon and things like that.
Exactly right. Yeah. And you can bet that I took some of those kinds of books and used them as inspiration. So
and you know what? Copy Genius. If you've seen that, it's had the success track of the longevity that it's had. It's important with storytelling and characters or whatnot, but it takes time to develop those as well. And when I'm listening to what John is sharing with us, for those who are tuned into this, do what works best for you. Just because somebody else does something another way, don't get caught up in thinking if you have a fresh idea or you can add a spin to something, don't not do it because you feel like, oh, I don't want to have it. We call it imposter syndrome or whatnot. I don't want to do that. You want to create something new. It's a reason. I had a mentor, John, to share with me, Copy Genius. It's a reason that you see people put promotions out at a certain time. It's a reason why you see brands that are successful. It's the color behind the brand. It's psychology behind it. They didn't just throw it up against the wall like spaghetti or whatnot and hope it worked. For most of them, they put a lot. They did a lot of beta testing. There was a lot of R&D in there or whatnot. Hundreds of millions of dollars and some billions that they've invested to get to this point. So you don't have to be Coca-Cola, or you don't have to be some of these big boys or big girls, so to speak, but you can learn from what they've already, laid the groundwork for as well. And, when I look at groundwork and the things that you've been able to accomplish, share a little bit, if you don't mind, John, about, because this is a time of transition. So I want to dive a little bit deeper with that. What made you do the transition the way that you did? Because some people would have just said, hey, I'm through with this. And they might have stopped, or they would have said, hey, this is enough. Or, you could be, quarantining on the beach somewhere and not even worry about doing a show like this, or even writing a book that you wrote. So could you share with us too, as well, for as your mind, for as transition, and not just kind of riding off into the sunset, but still serving and pushing in business the way that you're doing now?
Yeah. Well, I think that I'm a person who has always try to find exactly what my purpose is in life. And I've always been sort of interested in that. And the thing that brings me joy and gives me the most pleasure in life is helping people find their purpose. I've always been that way, being the guy who people could come to when they needed a friend and needed to hear some good advice, or just needed somebody to pour into them. So that's always been sort of my bent. That's kind of where I am. I have, in developing this book and kind of working out my own sort of life journey, I created a purpose for myself, a purpose statement. And that is that my purpose is to help people find those aha moments that help them change their lives. And so for me, I do that through stories. I love stories. I think I can tell a good story. So I wanted to kind of use that talent that I think I have and that I can develop further to kind of tell a story about a guy whose life needs to change and how he could do it. And that is, to me, that helps me serve my purpose, which is to help people through this book find an aha moment, something that they can say, man, I never thought of that before, or I've never thought of that in this way before. And so that really gives me joy. And I will say, and I know, so a lot of your listeners are thinking about writing a book, or they're in the middle of a book or whatever. And I think we all have that feeling like, what new can I say? There's so much out there. And so the encouragement I would give everybody is that you do have something new to say, because your experience is unique, that nobody else has had. Your thoughts and the things that you can deliver to people, the things that you can help people understand about themselves and about their purpose and their situation is unique only to you. So don't ever think that, what you have to say has been said too much, because you're the only one who can say it like you're saying it.
Awesome. I love it. I like to say, it's no one with a fingerprint like yours. So whenever you wonder what you have unique to say, is nobody like you that has ever existed, and that's spot on, John. And, for those out there, don't allow for what you think that you don't have, because I guarantee you that there is a tribe out there. They might not hear it from the old school, so to speak, Zig Ziglar books, whatnot. Now I love Zig, and all of them, Jim Rohn, the whole nine. I'm a history buff as well, and I love the content, and even the new age stuff where Darren Hardy and Anthony or Tony Robbins, they picked up and gleaned from them guys, and it continues to go, Earl Nightingale and so on. But you still have a way of taking some of those same principles, if you would like to, or even just use your own personal journey and just share how, whether it's professional development, if it's poetry for you, if it's an experience with you rearing and raising children, the list is endless. If you got a welding company, something that you grew up or that you learned, if you spent years in education, I mean, you got a whole chicken noodle soup series for that type of work that you can create content. But the main thing is don't get rid of the limited beliefs,
That's right.
the self-doubt, the scarcity mindset, and the lack mindset, and realize that, believe it or not, it's somebody that would love to hear and that could benefit from what you do or whatnot, or what you've been through, and by you putting it in a book. And what you have in this book out, I just want you to share with the audience too. What was that experience, knowing that you had a goal of doing a book? You have already been so successful in other areas of your life, but what did it mean to you when you was like, aha, I accomplished another goal. Here's the book in my hand, and the experience of family, friends, and loved ones and others. How did that make you feel? What was that feeling like?
Man, I tell you, I was going to start to say that it was like checking off something on my bucket list, but it was so much more than that to me, because it really was a validation of years of me thinking and me telling stories to myself and me trying to work out issues for myself, that I was able to pour into this character and pour into this story. And it was probably the best therapy I'd ever had, really, because I had to really. This story is not about me; it's about a fictional character. But I tell you what, everything that he's experienced, I've experienced some way, and I've had lots of people who've read the book who've come back to me and said, "Did you write this about me?" Even my wife said, "Is this about me?" I said, "No, it's not about you." But the thing is we all experience those things together, maybe slightly different ways in a different setting or a different career, but we all have that same human condition. We all suffer the same. We all hope the same. We all, strive to achieve. And so, we stumble. And so this story is a story that helps people can relate themselves. And so it became my story, even though it's really not a story about me. So.
That's amazing. And you know what, John, with this, because we've given them the teaser or whatnot about this amazing book and story. If you don't mind, can you share a little bit about the services that you provide, currently, how people can get in contact with you about that? Also, where they can purchase a copy of the book as well, or any social media handles or information that you have. We will have all this information in the show notes as well. But, for the sake of those who are tuned in, could you share with them how they can connect with you?
Oh, absolutely. Well, you can connect with me very easily by going to my website, johnhinkle.com, and there'll be some contact information there. I'm doing a little bit of, while we're speaking, I'm doing a little bit of updating on it, so be patient with it if you go and it's not fully complete. For example, I had a lot of speaking gigs that had to be canceled and because of the current circumstances. So some things in there that are still kind of being worked on, but they can find the book there. They can learn a little bit more about the book. They can click and go to, it'll take you to Amazon, straight to the place where you can order the book as well. So I'd love to connect with people. I do workshops, and I do one-on-ones and masterminds. So any of those kinds of things, if your readers are wanting to get involved, my focus is really around helping you figure out how to get from where you are to where you want to be. So that's my focus. So if you've got listeners out there who are kind of trying to figure out what's going on with them, and especially in light of the coronavirus and what's going on, and feeling a little bit insecure and trying to figure out what their next step is, this would be a great time to call me. I would love to talk with them.
Awesome. See, this is what you get on the Author Spotlight. You go behind the scenes, you get a powerhouse of Titan in business like John Hinkle to be able to benefit you and help. And as you can tell, this man is genuine. He's sincere when he tells you something. This is not for show. This is who he is off air and on air. So definitely reach out. Go to johnhinkle.com. We will have the information in the show notes. But once again, I'm a Southern gentleman. I was raised right, and I always learned from my grandparents and whatnot that people don't have to do anything for you. You're not entitled, even though sometimes it feels like we're in an era of entitlement. So I want to tell you again, sir, in front of everyone, that I'm truly grateful to have you on the show and looking forward to learning from you for years to come. So thank you again, John Hinkle, for coming on to the Author Spotlight.
Hey, Darren, thank you for having me on. And brother, I really appreciate you, and I appreciate the things that you do for your listeners and the people that you work with, because I know you change lives by helping people get their works published. And I think that's a noble cause. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you. And for those who are tuned in, you all are the real MVPs. You letting your next move be your best move. You're investing in yourself. So kudos to you. Remember, till next time, remember that this is the year for your new book. Be blessed and be great.